Caitlin Clark just pulled off the biggest power move in WNBA history, and nobody saw it coming. The rookie sensation, who already flipped an entire league upside down, decided she wasn't done making waves. Clark went straight to Indiana Fever management and basically told them to keep their hands off Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull. And guess what happened next? The front office folded faster than a cheap lawn chair. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Clark didn't just make a simple request. She walked into those executive offices knowing exactly what kind of leverage she had.
All right, let's get some things in order. Who is ESPN predicting to leave the Indiana Fever in free agency? Who are they predicting to leave all of these teams? This is the most free agents in WNBA history. Everybody is trying to cash in on this new CBA. We got to figure out who is about to be leaving Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, along with some of the other teams. I think there are a few players that are going to be demanding.
This is the same player who single-handedly turned the Fever from basement dwellers into playoff contenders. The same athlete who fills every arena and crashes ticket websites. When someone with that kind of juice speaks, smart people listen. The Fever had already made their decision about cutting costs this offseason.
For the entire league in general, but you're a free agent for the first time. Have you thought about what free agency might look like for you if you'd like to be back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a restricted free agent, so I think that changes things a little bit, but I've loved my years here in Indiana. So obviously with a lot of uncertainty, you don't know what's to come, but I've built a life here, and I love this franchise. I love the people, I love the fans, so.
Half their bench was hitting free agency, and the salary cap was tighter than a jar of pickles. Management was ready to let both Sophie and Lexi walk to save some cash. They figured they could replace them with cheaper options, and nobody would notice the difference. Not so fast there, executives. Clark caught wind of these plans and immediately shut them down. She didn't send a passive-aggressive tweet or drop cryptic hints in interviews. The superstar went directly to the source and made her position crystal clear. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull were staying put. End of discussion. And here's the kicker. This wasn't some emotional friendship move. Clark looked at the numbers and realized something management apparently missed. These two players were the glue holding everything together during the chaos of last season. When half the roster was injured and the media circus was in full swing, Sophie and Lexi were the ones keeping the locker room stable. The chemistry between these three players was undeniable on the court. Every time Clark drove to the basket and kicked it out for a corner three, either Sophie or Lexi was there ready to drain it. When opponents tried to rough up the rookie, Sophie was the first one stepping in to even the score. When Clark needed someone reliable to space the floor, Lexi delivered without fail, but management was about to throw all that chemistry in the trash for what? A few $1,000s in salary savings? Clark recognized the stupidity of that decision before it became a disaster. She forced the Fever to see what they were about to lose and convinced them to change course. The best part about this whole situation is how Clark handled it. No drama, no public ultimatums, just direct communication with the people who make the decisions. She proved that real power doesn't need to be loud or messy. Sometimes the most effective approach is walking into a room and stating facts. Let's take a moment to rewind and look at how the media completely butchered this story from the beginning. For weeks, every basketball outlet was running headlines about Lexie Hull packing her bags and saying tearful goodbyes to Indiana. Sports reporters were practically writing her obituary as a Fever player before anyone bothered checking the actual facts. The whole narrative was built on absolutely nothing. Hull never announced she was leaving. She never posted any farewell messages. The entire drama was manufactured by journalists who saw a restricted free agent expressing normal uncertainty and decided to turn it into a soap opera. Here's what actually happened. Hull gave a completely standard interview where she said what every player says before contract negotiations. She mentioned being uncertain about the future and not knowing what free agency might bring. That's literally what agents tell their clients to say in public. Keep your options open, don't show your hand, let the market develop. But the media took those careful words and spun them into a departure story. Suddenly every blog and podcast was reporting that Hull was definitely gone. Fans started flooding social media with goodbye posts. The rumor mill went into overdrive with speculation about which teams were courting her. Not only that, but nobody bothered explaining what restricted free agency actually means. Hull wasn't some unrestricted player who could sign anywhere she wanted. Indiana controlled her destiny completely. They had the right to match any offer sheet from another team. She couldn't leave unless the Fever decided to let her walk. But here's the twist. While everyone was busy writing fan fiction about Hull's departure, Caitlin Clark was already working behind the scenes to make sure it never happened. She saw the media circus and realized management might actually buy into the nonsense. Clark knew that losing Hull would be a massive mistake regardless of what the headlines were saying. The moment that changed everything was when Clark posted her public support. She dropped just 3 words on Hull's social media post and suddenly the entire narrative shifted. Those 3 words weren't a goodbye message between friends. They were a signal to everyone paying attention that Clark had Hull's back. And trust me, Indiana's front office was definitely paying attention. When your franchise player makes a public statement supporting a teammate, you better believe ownership takes notes. Clark wasn't being subtle about her preferences. She was sending a clear message about which players she wanted to keep around. The whole situation exposed how clueless sports media can be when they're chasing clicks instead of facts. These reporters spent weeks building a storyline that had zero basis in reality. They created drama where none existed and almost convinced management to make a terrible decision based on pure speculation. What makes this even more ridiculous is how quickly the tone changed once Clark's involvement became obvious. The same outlets that were writing Hull's farewell suddenly started talking about chemistry and continuity. Amazing how facts can shift when the most powerful player in the league weighs in. Now let's dig into the Sophie Cunningham situation because this one gets even spicier. While everyone was obsessing over Hull's fake departure drama, Cunningham was actually facing real heat from the front office. Management was seriously considering cutting ties with her after what they called the whole WNBA warning incident.
Really, really good. Actually, I'm just actually really motivated, and I think I'm at a really good spot in my life where like I'm just excited to just like pour into my body, pour into things that I enjoy. And I'm just so excited for this upcoming season because I don't know where I'm going to be. And I just feel like in the W, your golden years, I would say, is anywhere from 28 to 34.
Cunningham had been running her mouth all season, defending Clark from critics and haters. Every time someone took a cheap shot at the rookie, Sophie was the first one firing back in press conferences. When opposing players got too physical with Clark on the court, Cunningham was ready to throw down and protect her teammate. But apparently, being loyal comes with consequences in corporate America. The Fever executives were getting nervous about Cunningham's outspoken personality. They worried her comments might create distractions or bring negative attention to the franchise. Some suits in the boardroom thought it would be easier to just move on from the drama entirely. Here's where it gets absolutely insane. The same front office that benefited from Cunningham's loyalty all season was ready to stab her in the back the moment it became slightly inconvenient. They watched her take bullets for their franchise player and then decided she was too much trouble to keep around. Cunningham had spent months being Clark's shield against media attacks and court roughness. When half the league was targeting the rookie with hard fouls and verbal intimidation, Sophie stepped up without being asked. She made enemies defending someone who was bringing millions of dollars to their organization. And how was management planning to reward that loyalty? By showing her the door during contract negotiations. They figured they could find some quiet player who would keep her head down and avoid controversy. Someone who wouldn't make waves or speak up when things got ugly. But then Clark stepped in again and completely flipped the script. She made it crystal clear that cutting Cunningham would be the dumbest move in franchise history. Clark wasn't about to let management throw away the one player who had her back during the roughest parts of the season. The timing of this decision reveals everything about corporate thinking versus player loyalty. Management was focused on avoiding potential problems instead of recognizing what they already had. Cunningham wasn't just some random role player causing trouble. She was the heartbeat of team chemistry and the enforcer who kept opponents honest. What really sealed the deal was when Clark pointed out the obvious truth that everyone else was missing. Letting Cunningham go after everything she did would be a public relations nightmare. Fans had watched Sophie defend their favorite player all season long. Cutting her would look like the ultimate betrayal. Clark saved the Fever from making a decision that would have destroyed their credibility with supporters. She forced management to see beyond their fear of controversy and recognize the value of genuine loyalty. Sometimes the players who make noise are exactly the ones you need to keep around. The best part about this whole situation is watching corporate executives realize they almost made a massive mistake. They were so worried about managing perception that they forgot about rewarding performance and loyalty. But wait, there's more to this story, because what Clark just accomplished isn't happening in a vacuum. She basically rewrote the entire power structure of professional women's basketball in one off-season move. This rookie just proved that superstar influence can override front office decisions faster than you can say salary cap. Let's be brutally honest here. The WNBA has never seen anything like this before. Veteran superstars like Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart took years to build this kind of organizational influence. They had to prove themselves through multiple seasons and championships before management started listening to their roster preferences. Clark skipped the entire learning curve and went straight to running the show. She's barely finished her first season and already has more say in personnel decisions than coaches who have been around for decades. That's not normal rookie behavior. That's generational talent flexing muscles that most players never develop. And here's what makes this even more incredible. Clark didn't need to throw tantrums or make public demands to get what she wanted. She simply walked into meetings and stated her position like the business decision it was. Management looked at their ticket sales, television ratings, and merchandise numbers, then realized arguing with her would be financial suicide. The Fever went from irrelevant bottom feeders to must-see television entirely because of Clark's impact. Season ticket sales exploded, games started selling out, national broadcasts picked up their schedule, corporate sponsors came calling with bigger checks than the franchise had ever seen before. So when Clark says she wants certain players protected, ownership doesn't see it as a rookie making demands. They see it as their most valuable asset providing strategic input. She's not just another employee anymore. She's the reason their business model actually works. This shift represents something bigger than just one team making roster decisions. Clark is proving that modern athletes can have immediate influence if they understand their value properly. She didn't wait for permission to have opinions about team building. She recognized her leverage and used it effectively. The traditional model required players to stay quiet and accept whatever management decided. Veterans would eventually earn the right to provide input after proving their worth over multiple seasons. Clark completely bypassed that system by becoming too valuable to ignore from day one. What's really fascinating is how this changes the dynamic for other young stars entering the league. Future rookies are going to study exactly how Clark built this kind of influence so quickly. They'll realize that exceptional talent combined with smart business thinking can reshape organizational hierarchies immediately. The league office has to be watching this situation with mixed feelings. On one hand, Clark's star power is driving unprecedented growth and attention. On the other hand, they're seeing a player accumulate decision-making authority that used to be reserved for seasoned veterans and front office executives. But honestly, fighting against this trend would be stupid for everyone involved. Clark's instincts about team chemistry and roster construction have been proven correct. The players she wanted to keep are exactly the ones who helped turn the Fever into contenders. Now, here's the bottom line that everyone needs to understand about this entire situation. Clark didn't save Cunningham and Hull just because they're buddies who hang out after games. She made a calculated championship-level decision based on understanding what actually wins basketball games. Every legendary athlete in history figured out the same secret that Clark just discovered. You don't build dynasties by constantly shuffling personnel to save money. You build them by identifying the right people and refusing to let them go. Michael Jordan fought to keep Dennis Rodman despite his chaos. Kobe Bryant demanded the Lakers keep Derek Fisher for his leadership. Steph Curry made sure Golden State protected Draymond Green when everyone thought he was overrated. The difference is that Clark figured this out faster than anyone before her. Most superstars spend years learning which teammates actually matter versus which ones just put up decent stats. Clark identified her core group during her rookie season and immediately moved to lock them down permanently. And let's talk about why these specific players matter so much. Cunningham brings the edge and fearlessness that championship teams require. When opposing players try to intimidate or rough up the star, she's the enforcer who sends a message back. That kind of protection is invaluable for maintaining team confidence and momentum. Hull provides the steady foundation that allows Clark to take risks and be creative. She spaces the floor properly, defends multiple positions without complaining, and never tries to do more than her role requires. Those qualities might not make highlight reels, but they absolutely win playoff series. Together, these three players create a chemistry that can't be replicated through free agency signings or trades. They understand each other's tendencies, trust each other's decisions, and complement each other's strengths perfectly. Breaking up that core would have been organizational malpractice. But here's what makes Clark's move even smarter. She forced the Fever to commit to continuity during the most uncertain period in WNBA history, with collective bargaining negotiations looming and potential work stoppages threatening 2026. Having stable relationships becomes even more valuable. Players want to know they're valued and protected by their organizations. Clark just proved that Indiana will fight to keep the right people around, instead of treating everyone as disposable assets. That message will resonate throughout the locker room and make other players want to stay long term. The timing of this decision also sets up the Fever for sustained success instead of short-term mediocrity. They're not rebuilding anymore or hoping to stumble into competitiveness. They're building around a proven core that already reached the playoffs and showed they can compete with anyone. Clark basically forced management to stop thinking like a small market franchise that has to cut corners everywhere. She made them realize they have championship level talent and need to invest accordingly. Sometimes the most expensive decision in the short term becomes the most profitable choice over time. Looking ahead, this move establishes Clark as the undisputed leader of the franchise and the architect of their future success. If you're enjoying this breakdown of how Caitlin Clark is reshaping the entire WNBA power structure and want to see more behind the scenes analysis of basketball's biggest stories, smash that subscribe button and help us grow this channel.